In times of prosperity, choice could indeed be scarce. 80% of South Korea's GNP comes from megacorporations. People give birth at hospitals founded by megacorporations, send children to schools run by megacorporations, and even pass away at the same hospitals owned by megacorporations. Monopoly exists from consumer choice, like buying a mobile phone, to career choice, like choosing an employer. When a society is dominated by a big government and megacorporations, no one can get away from monopoly. 20 years ago, cooperatives were founded by housewives in both South Korea and Taiwan to contend with the monopoly of megacorporations. The business scale grew from a few partners to thousands, aiming to help people save themselves from monopoly.
오늘 야채 진짜 싱싱하네.
So Kyung-eun is a housewife as well as one of the 2,000 shareholders of Aicoup supermarket.
이거 이정만 우리 그 런지 물품으로 이렇게 먹여서 키운 정말로 비린내도 안 나고 너무 맛있는 계란이에요.
Contrary to usual supermarket chains, Aicoup is a cooperative funded and owned by people collectively. The cooperative's consumers are also the cooperative's owners. There are a few hundred cooperatives across the country with 280,000 members.
어떻게 오셨어요? 뭐 사셨어? 오늘 뭐 해 먹으려고?
와, 맛있는 거 많이 샀다.
Lotte-Mart, the country's biggest supermarket, owns several subsidiary brands. They work together to monopolize the market and manipulate market prices. Seo Kyung-eun said even though products were expensive, consumers did not have alternatives. As a first-time owner, she works at the shop every day.
말씀하셨던 것처럼 가정주부의 어떤 지켜야 될 그 자리가 여기가 아니라고 남편은 생각했고 그래서 남편은 제가 여기를 올 때마다 여러 가지 뭐 방해를 하기도 하고 제가 남편의 어떤 얘기를 뭐 서로 뭐 다투거나 뭐 이런 식으로 해결하기보다는 그냥 맛있고 좋은 음식을 갖다 주면서
The Koreans always say, even for something as common as a cup noodle, they have no choice but to buy from the 4 megacorporations. With a membership of 280,000, Aicoup is able to develop and produce its own products.
저희 아들은 늘 건강한 라면 해서 시중 이제 식품 첨가물이 좀 있는 라면을 막 요구를 해요. 그 맛에 그래도 가장 가까운 게 레드라면. 그래서 빨간 레드라면.
These are organic, contain no additives, and are much cheaper than those sold at Lotte-Mart. They said Aicoup products are for poor people. So long as entrepreneurs stop focusing only on making the biggest profits, the world will become a better place.
2017년 릴리안 사태로 불거진 부효씨
Aicoup holds a product evaluation meeting every month.
그리고 또 이게 삼계탕 같은 경우도요.
On today's agenda is the new ginseng chicken soup.
그러니까 든든한 요 한 마리가 든든한 식사가
다리 한 6개 동물, 6다리 동물 정도 되면 우리 다 다리 하나씩은 먹잖아.
The Koreans are known for being straightforward. They admitted that the chicken without additives was less tender. Their biggest challenge is to make food not just healthy, but also tasty. They unite to contend with megacorporations. Toxic chemicals that might cause infertility have recently been found in megacorporations' sanitary products for women.
접착제 부분에서 아마 휘발성 유기화합물이 제일 많이 검출된다고 하더라고요. 큰 뭐 대기업에서 만든 제품은 무조건 신뢰를 하고 구매를 했는데, 그러니까 부작용들, 이 생리대를 쓰고 나서부터 이상하게 뭐 생리 과다, 생리통이 심해지고 또 안 생기던 작은 근종이 생기고 했던 그 사례들이 올라오기 시작하면서.
The 2-hour meeting finished, but they failed to come up with a unanimous vote to launch the new product. The discussion will resume another day. They take time at Aicoup, as everyone's opinion has to be respected in genuine democracy. Korean megacorporations constitute 80% of the country's GNP. They were subsidized and supported by former President Park Chung-hee in the 60s. However, the policy of economic assistance eventually bred monopoly of megacorporations that even the government was unable to curb. Koreans said tycoons from these conglomerates are above the law. Former Samsung Group chairman was pardoned twice after being convicted of bribery and tax evasion. Megacorporations have become invincible. What would people do to stand up to these megacorporations? A town equivalent to the size of 6 Victoria Parks was built by Aikup in southeastern Seoul. It has its own restaurants, a cinema, even a sauce factory. There are 12 factories in total and a population of around 1,000.
그때도 더 꽈주고, 더 꽈달라고.
Yu Hyung-man works in the meat factory. He said the sausages and luncheon meat here are unique and different from the rest in South Korea.
저희가 전날 배합을 친 소세지를 가지고 지금 현재 이 와건에 있는 이 배합물을 이 후퍼에 넣고 있습니다. 태일아 한번 문 좀 열어봐봐.
They put no colorants or preservatives, not even salt. Yu Hyung-man said people have to taste it to realize how different it is from the usual sausage. Processed meat production in South Korea is monopolized by megacorporations. The annual sales of just one corporation can reach 400 billion Korean won. However, carcinogens have been found in sausages and instant noodles. A banned DDT insecticide has also been found in their eggs. Yu Hyung-man said it was because they are keen on ripping people off.
저희 쌍둥이도 오면은 뭐 간식 달라고 소세지 달라고 하거든요. 그러면은 저는 시중 소세지 절대 먹일 수가 없어요. 보면은 뭐 첨가물이 워낙 많이 들어가 있으니까.
Aikup has done many firsts in the country, including the first and only black bean sauce noodle and soybean paste stew without colorants. Their beef comes from cattle raised with non-GMO feed. Aikup's food safety standard is even higher than that of the government, which makes their farm operation even more challenging.
이렇게 해서 하려고 2마리씩 넣는데 여기서 3마리 정도씩만 해서 사육을 하려고 하고 있거든요.
Hong Yun-gu's family has been running cattle farms for generations, but Aikup was a completely new lesson even for someone as experienced as him. This special non-GMO feed for cattle is mainly composed of protein and water. Even though it costs more, it does not mean the cows would like it. What frustrates him most is the decline in meat quality. The cattle are raised differently here, so the meat is no longer graded A++.
소 성장하는데 조금 그 성장과 그 육질에 조금 차이가 나겠죠. 생산자들은 조금 힘든다. 소비자분들 보면 이제 등급 A, 2뿔, 뭐 1뿔, A.
Aikup has thoroughly transformed the way farmers work. Farmers without sufficient capital used to work in debt. Aikup's prepaid system agrees to underwrite a certain amount of the farmers' quarterly agricultural products so that they can farm with bigger security. Many valiant, independent Korean farmers were convinced and took part in the Reformation. Yu Hyung-man, manager of the meat factory, lives 5 minutes away by car from the production plant.
요리방이 지금 여기 있고요. 그 다음에 여기 지금 저희 이제 가족들 사진이 이렇게 있습니다. 저희가 좀 저희 사랑하는 와이프, 아름다운 저희 와이프, 예, 예. 그리고 저희 첫째 딸, 일로 와봐. 첫째 딸.
The rent for this 840 square foot apartment is only half of what one has to pay in Seoul.
평소에는 이렇게 깨끗하게 지내고 있습니다.
According to the South Korean government's official statistics, a few hundred people die from overwork every year. Yu Hyung-man became one of the factory's owners with an investment of 6,000 Hong Kong dollars. Such a little amount would not even be enough to become a hawker.
일단은 아이쿱 생협 내에는 일단 학벌이나 학력을 따지진 않아요. 근데 일단은 본인이 하겠다는 의지와 노력이 받쳐지면은 기회는 분명히 주어져요.
When megacorporations are in the driving seat, any progress made by activists is difficult. Like any corporation, Icoup also experienced the financial crisis. Afterwards, their popularity started to grow during recovery. Some of their products were even copied by megacorporations. The government's promise to help turned out to be lip service. They would rather find their way out than rely on the government.
뭉치면 살고 흩어지면 죽는다라는 속담이 있거든요. 그게 아마 우리들의 이렇게 내부적으로 결속하는
In both South Korea and Taiwan, people decided to stand together against megacorporations. While Icoup in South Korea is regarded as Asia's best cooperative, what about those in Taiwan?
这个是豆薯，就是外面比较少有，那也有社员说是特别的清甜啊。
Homemakers Union Consumers Co-op, or HUCC, is Taiwan's biggest cooperative.
一天的蔬菜量大概就是2公吨左右，那如果换算成包数，大概是6500包。
Members decide on what to sell and at what price through an open and transparent mechanism. Li Xiuwei is the board chairperson, elected by over 70,000 members. She said while the rank sounds prestigious, she is actually running errands for others.
我只是去买一把菜，怎么会有一天成为他的理事主席？我想这个对于很多人来讲都是不可思议，但是所有这样的事情在合作社，它却是非常可能发生的。
HUCC was established after the scandal of cadmium-contaminated rice. A group of housewives could not afford a chemical test, so they resorted to the simplest method, tracing the use of pesticides by reading farmers' records page by page. In the end, over 100 housewives decided to acquire a piece of land together. The first consumer revolution came true due to their hard work. This HUCC branch is located on the ground floor of a residential building. Newcomer Fenya is as passionate as the veterans.
君怡是我们这里的强力推销员，就是你多跟他讲2句话，你就是不知不觉又多买了什么东西这样。
To become a member of HUCC, one has to attend an orientation.
合作社是大家一起出资，就是每一个人都是股东。那如果是一般的有机商店，它的出资的是股东，去买东西的那些人只是消费者。
There were only 3 participants that day, but the orientation went on. The belief of people is more important than the number of people for HUCC. Fenya said she did not understand at the beginning.
我从来不知道说买东西还要先入社，你还不能买，为什么他们会这么傲慢？我想要知道为什么，所以我还是参加了。 我刚刚讲到我们的篮菜，那这里刚好今天还有一篮。
The vegetables are mixed and pre-packed, so customers cannot pick only what they want. Some are so rare that new members might have never seen them before.
也现菜，芹菜呀，这是芹菜，长得好陌生哦。我现在初次见面。我们在买一篮菜的时候，社员会有一种被强迫的幸福感。
These Taiwanese housewives who stand up to the government and megacorporations for the people's interests have fought many battles. The tofu revolution is one of them. This tofu manufacturer is HUCC's secret alliance. Every piece of dried tofu is handmade. The owner recalled the day when they first met.
那一天突然我家来了10几个人，我吓一跳。我家从来没有那么多什么博士、什么的教授的来的，我家那么多人。
The Taiwanese government started to import American grain crops in the 70s. They were too cheap for locally grown soybean to compete, so the latter eventually disappeared from the market. The soy milk that Taiwanese drink every day is made with American soybean. People do not realize that those soybeans only qualify as animal feed, and they contain antioxidants and desiccants. They are not meant for human consumption.
当然是非常震惊。外面的早餐店其实都一杯豆浆10块钱，然后以前不知道的时候还是会傻傻喝。
HUCC housewives wanted to make their own tofu. The owner said soybean is monopolized by megacorporations from cultivation to transportation. A small-scale company can forget about it.
要不要花钱啊？谁花钱？你们只出一张嘴巴嘛。可能一个豆干竟然做出来要卖100块，谁买啊？结果你说要在那个大楼里面去做个豆腐工厂，你们天不天真啊？
They finally managed to purchase the first batch of edible soybean, but the soybeans were rotting rapidly due to the high humidity in Taiwan. Therefore, most of them were used to make stinky tofu, a popular Taiwanese snack.
他们现场10几个人喝了这一杯豆浆，大家都流眼泪。我们几十年喝的到底是什么豆浆？真正的长这么大，第一次吃到黄豆浆的滋味。
After going through all the blood, sweat, and tears, they finally launched the first soft tofu made with non-animal feed soybeans in Taiwan. However, the demand was too low for mass production due to the high price. HUCC has been unsuccessfully trying to grow their own soybeans for 20 years. One of the biggest problems is inadequate members.
我心很痛啊，因为我们弄了30年，才多少社员？才6、7万个社员啊，所以睡觉1半以上啊，有生气，有高兴，有不舒服，有时候我也是骂得他们一塌糊涂。
大哥，今天是什么菜？
今天是高丽菜，还有那个葱在前面。因为连日的下雨没有，外有锅的比较白啊。
HUCC insists on one thing amid all the difficulties in the past 20 years. Every bunch of veggie has to pass the nitrate test.
用的这就是水溶液啊，拿起来用这个试纸来测。
Nitrate, widely used in processed meat, is carcinogenic. HUCC discovered that due to the excessive use of pesticides, the amount of nitrate found in some vegetables was 80 times more than that in processed meat. The cabbage brought here by farmers today contains just 1,050 parts per million of nitrate residue, so it passes the test. HUCC has an even higher food safety standard than the government. They advocate low nitrate. They hope that farmers will abandon practices such as large-scale fertilization and irrigation. Growing rapidly does not necessarily mean it is good.
有抗拒啊，他做不来就抗拒啊。 就抗议嘛，因为你拿来了，然后一测的话，哇，高得不得了。
HUCC is different from Icoup in South Korea, as they do not have their own farmers. They have to go convince the farmers one by one. At the beginning, even the tractors and farming tools were paid for by HUCC, but the deal was broken in the end. Sometimes the vegetables were bitten by worms all over and full of holes. They even joked about it and called those lace veggies. The chairperson admitted that they have to work harder.
早期因为是市场上有机的东西非常少，每样东西得来不易，我们都要很珍惜。所以什么雷丝菜啦，什么畸形的萝卜啦，或者是不甜的西瓜啦，我们的生产者给我们的品质，是不是也可以跟着进步？
大
all the challenges in a busy life, most Koreans have been taking the same path and living under the control of megacorporations for decades. They had not imagined that a supermarket could be opened through fundraising among merely a few thousand people. Even public housing and hospitals could be built without the government. Neither had they imagined that the cry for justice they had during university years would come back at their middle age. They believed that the seat of justice lives in every Korean.
아이들을 잘 케어할 수 있겠다고 생각을 했지만 실제 사회는 많은 것들이 노출되어 있는 곳인 거예요. 그래서 산업논리에 우리가 소비자든 아니면 누구든 이렇게 끌려다니지 않고 내가 주체가 될 수 있겠구나 이런 생각들을 하게 된 이유가